7 p.m. South African time. And so good evening, valued guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mdudu Zintuli I'm an educator at the Johannesburg Holocaust and Genocide Center. It is with great honor that I welcome you to this 82nd commemoration of the Jewish deportation to Mauritius. In December 1940, the British deported almost 1,600 Jewish refugees to Mauritius, refugees who had tried to sail to safety from Nazi-occupied Europe. Once in Mauritius, they were detained until the end of the war in 1945. Welcome, survivors and descendants, those joining us in spirit and those joining us in person today, welcome. Today we will be honored to listen and watch the testimony of Shlomo Handel. Thank you. We look forward to that. Your Excellencies, spiritual leaders, presidents, and directors, welcome. As part of today's program, we will be privileged to be joined virtually via video by Owen Griffiths, who is the president of the Island Hebrew Congregation of Mauritius, and he will deliver an opening address virtually by video. Yigal Cohen, the director of the Ghetto Fighters House in Israel, will also deliver an opening address tonight in person. And so we are privileged to be able to interact with Yigal Cohen. Also, Rabbi Silber Heft, the spiritual leader and CEO of the African Jewish Congress, who will deliver today's concluding remarks, as well as conclude the program with a prayer. Thank you very much for that. We look forward to the presentation of the Mauritius Exile Collection by Anat Bratman-Elhalel from the Ghetto Fighters House archive. This presentation will have a specific focus on stories of 3 families. Also, as part of today's program, we'll have a candle lighting ceremony, which will be presented to us through a video. We look forward to that touching ceremony as well. Thank you to the organizers of this commemoration ceremony, Dr. Roni Mikel Arieli, the Ghetto Fighters House, the Hebrew University, the Beau Bassin Jewish Detainees Memorial and Information Center, and the Island Hebrew Congregation of Mauritius. Thank you very much. And the Johannesburg Holocaust and Genocide Center. Thank you. And in fact, I'm coming to you live from the premises of the Johannesburg Holocaust and Genocide Center in South Africa. At this point in time, I'd like to invite Owen Griffiths to address us via video for an opening address.
We'll have to redo it. You cannot hear. Please optimize sound.
So my colleague in the background who's playing who's supporting us technically is sharing her screen, and so she will restart.
Greetings to all attendees and especially ex-detainees. Greetings from Mauritius. As president of the Jewish community in Mauritius and as chair of the Beau Bassin Jewish Detainee Memorial and Information Center, I would like to welcome you all to this webinar, which is being held in conjunction with the Ghetto Fighters House, the Johannesburg Holocaust and Genocide Center, and the Avraham Harman Institute of Contemporary Jewry at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. The webinar is for the commemoration of the 82nd anniversary of the liberation of the Jewish Aliyah Bet detainees from Beau Bassin prison in Mauritius. The commemoration today is about this globally little-known story of the deportation to Mauritius of some 1,600 Jewish detainees who, having successfully fled Nazi-occupied Europe and arrived in Palestine, were subsequently imprisoned at the Atlit camp near Haifa and then deported and imprisoned in Mauritius. Their only crime being Jews and having illegally returned to the ancient and new Jewish homeland in Palestine without a visa. Of the approximately 1,600 detainees deported to Mauritius, some 126 tragically died here. Those remaining in Mauritius at the end of the war in Europe were allowed to finally go home after 4 years and 7 months in detention. On the 11th of August 1945, 1,307 detainees boarded the Franconia in Port Louis Harbour for the 2-week voyage to Haifa. Furthermore, over 60 children were born in the prison. One of them, my very good friend Tali Regev, is today the honorary consul of Mauritius in Israel. Many times I'm asked what remains of this tragic episode in Mauritius. And the answer is quite a lot, actually. Not only is there a Jewish detainee cemetery at Bassin, which is carefully maintained by the Island Hebrew congregation with the assistance of the South African Jewish community, but we have a small and very moving memorial and museum, very professionally done, telling their story. Furthermore, the story has inspired a number of Mauritian authors to write plays and novels about or connected to the detainees' stories. Authors like Alan Gordon-Jonty and Natasha Apana. These are currently very difficult and challenging times for the people of Israel. Let us hope the story of bravery and audacity of these Aliyah Bet detainees shall again serve as an inspiration for Israel's current leaders. Those detainees and millions of others built up modern Israel as a light unto the nations of the world. Let us keep that light kindled. And on that note, I would like to end here. But before doing so, I want to thank those who made today's virtual function possible. Dr. Ronnie Michael Arieli from the Hebrew University, Tali Nace of the Johannesburg Holocaust and Genocide Center, and the Ghetto Fighters House in Israel. To you all, I say, Toda Rabba.
Thank you. Thank you, Owen Griffiths, for that wonderful opening address. And at this point in time, I would like to invite Director Yigal Cohen, the director of the Ghetto Fighters House in Israel, to deliver an opening address again to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. This year, we are marking 82 years since the arrival of the ship Atlantic at Mauritius, bearing 1,600 Jewish deportees. There was never a Jewish community on the beautiful island of Mauritius, and yet it played a significant role when it became home to Jews who fled the horrors of the Holocaust in Europe and then captured and deported over there by the British. During the years they stayed on the island, they created an admirable and inspiring community out of nowhere, all through the strength of their spirit. Among other things, the exiles founded a Zionist organization, a youth movement, and a school, held memorial days, celebrated Jewish holidays, and organized lectures, classes, and theater performances. The story of the exiles to Mauritius is well documented in our archive and well represented in our ISCOR exhibition. We are fortunate to have this rich and important collection in our holdings and the opportunity to cherish their memory. I want to thank our partners from this event, Dr. Ronnie Michael, from the Avraham Harman Institute of Contemporary Jewry at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Tali Nates, a dear partner and director of the Johannesburg Holocaust and Genocide Center, and the Beau Bassin Jewish Detainees Memorial Information Center. Warm thanks to Anat Bratman-Elhalel, the Ghetto Fighters House Archive Director, for your support and investment in organizing this event. We wish you a moving and a meaningful evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Igal, for that wonderful opening address and for mentioning our partners and for mentioning us as well. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. At this point in time, I'd like to invite Dr. Roni Mikel-Arieli to introduce our next speaker, Anat Bratman-Elhalel from the Ghetto Fighters House Archive.
Thank you, Mdu. Good evening, everyone. It's a very exciting moment for me to be here today, this evening. I hope you can't hear my baby screaming outside the door. And I'm very privileged to introduce Anat Bratman-Elhalel, a member of the Ghetto Fighters House Archive since 2007. And among other things, she took care of the Mauritius Exile Collection, the most extensive collection on the deportation to Mauritius that exists. And she's doing such an important work in exposing this collection to the public. So I'm very, very privileged to have Anat here and of course to listen to her fascinating presentation. The floor is yours, Anat.
Thank you, Roni. It's always a pleasure. Let me share my screen. Okay, do you see it now? Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So let's start. Okay. We are very proud to be a home to the Mauritius collection and to preserve the artifacts, documents, albums, photographs, and artworks from the former British detention camp. There are more than 1,000 items in this rich collection depicting the life of the Jewish detainees during almost 5 years. Behind each item, there is a story. In Hebrew, we say, Kol sipur hu olam umlo'o. Every story is a complete world. By reading the letters and the diaries, looking at the photos and the albums, or by exploring the artifacts and the artworks, one can learn a lot about the daily life in the camp and about the ways in which the detainees coped with the difficulties, their endless worries, the suffering, and the loss that many of them experienced during that period. This evening, I would like to shed light on 3 different stories, 3 different families. You can see some examples of this rich collection. It was very hard to choose which images to put on the screen. The first story is the story of the Mandler family from Vienna. You can see Arthur Mandler and his wife Marguerite on the right and their children, Susie and Kurt, on the left. Arthur Mandler, the father of the family, emigrated to Mandat Palestine, Eretz Israel, on board of an illegal immigration ship. He was arrested and held at the detention camp in Atlit for a year. His daughter, Susie, immigrated to Mandat Palestine on March 1939 in the framework of the Youth Aliyah and settled down in Kibbutz Na'an. Her brother, Kurt Paul, sailed on December 1939 on the last ship of children leaving Europe and settled on Kibbutz Kiryat Anavim. The mother, Marguerite Mandler, born Pressburg, sailed on the Atlantic. But before sailing to Mauritius, spent together, of course, with the other immigrants, 2 weeks interned at Atlit, separated from the other detainees in the camp. At the same time, Arthur Mandler, her husband, was held at least 2, but the couple didn't meet, nor did they knew of each other's presence there. On December 26, 1940, Margaret was deported to Mauritius along with her sister Irma Glückner and Irma's daughter Gertrude, or Trude. Irma died on Mauritius and was buried in the Jewish cemetery there. And I hope all of you heard the fascinating lecture given by Professor Shula Parush about the cemetery in Mauritius. But going back to the Mandlers, Margarete, who took care of her niece who suffered from a nervous breakdown, frequently sent letters to various bodies to tell of the banishment to exile on Mauritius and the poor conditions in the detention camp. Willy Pressburg, Irma and Margaret's brother, was arrested during the Kristallnacht pogrom and sent to the Dachau and Buchenwald camps. Upon his release, he and his wife Wilma fled to England. From there, the couple tried to obtain the release of their relatives in Mauritius. The Mandlers file contains large body of letters documenting the efforts of Willy and Wilma did to release Margaret, Irma, and Trude from Mauritius. Here you can see some of these letters and reply letters that they received to their requests. On the left, you can see a reply Margaret received from the South African Zionist Federation. You are probably aware that every effort has been made and is being made to alleviate your sorrowful position, and Dr. Zwergbaum has been informed of all that has taken place. I thank you for your article and assure you that further articles will always be welcome. With Zionist greeting, yours sincerely, Assistant Acting Secretary. In the middle, you can see a reply Wilma Pressburg, Margaret's sister-in-law, received from Colonel Stanley Oliver office at Downing Street on March 1945. I'm directed to inform you that it has been decided that these refugees will be allowed to enter Palestine when the necessary arrangement can be made. As we all know, it took about 6 months since this letter was written until the detainees were allowed to enter Eretz Israel. While cataloging, as Ronnie said, I was the lucky one to catalog all these documents and photographs and so on, which were received in 2009. So while cataloging this file in 2009, we were surprised to find that in a different file from the Mauritius collection in the estate of Dr. Aaron Adolf Zwergbaum, among many other documents, Margaret's last will and testament was held. Dr. Adolf Zwergbaum, as you probably know, was a lawyer, and this is probably the reason Margaret left her will with him. It is written in English, and I will read some lines from it. I, the undersigned Margaret Mandler, detainee number 26, Camp Beau, Bassin, Mauritius, writing with complete freedom of will, under no correction nor compulsion, and in full possession of my mental faculties, declare herewith my last will as follows. I appoint my niece, Miss Gertrude Klugner, detainee in Camp Beau, Bassin, universal heiress of all my movable possessions in Mauritius, money, clothing, and other property left of any kind, subject to the provisions of Section 3 and 4. After my death, a cable of my passing array should be sent not to my husband in order to avoid, her husband was in Palestine then, in order to avoid a shock, but to Mr. Sharoni, Jaffa Road, Haifa, Palestine. I wish to be buried in the same grave as my sister who died in Mauritius. Written down and signed with my own hand in Beau, Bassin, Mauritius on January 1945. 2 witnesses confirmed and signed the testament, M. Rosenfeld, and Heiner Frank. Trude, Margareta's niece, died shortly after the exiles arrived in Mandate, Palestine. Margaret died in 1950 in Israel, not in Mauritius, as she thought would be, and Arthur in 1956. Susie married in Na'an and immigrated to the United States. Peretz Shaked, Kurt Mandler, donated his family estate to our archive. And now to our second story for this evening, the Fuchs family. Lily, you can see her on the left. Lily was born in 1921 in Teplice, Czechoslovakia. She met her husband, Ervin, born in 1912 in Lovosice. They met at Hachshara, a Zionist training center. Ervin was an officer in the Czechoslovak army and worked for Unilever company. They married on December 1939 in Prague and left the city the next day on their way to Mandate, Palestine, using forged visas to Latin America. They stayed in Bratislava for 9 months, after which they sailed to Palestine on the Atlantic. Ervin kept a journal, you can see it here, all along the way, documenting his experiences until they were released and returned to Palestine in 1945. Lily wrote a diary as well. Their first son, Raphael, was born in the camp. The portrait you can see of Ervin, you can see on the right, was made in Mauritius by Fritz Meyer. In addition to the difficulties the detainees had to cope with, imprisonment, disease, death, tropic weather, etc., there were also the deep worries as to the well-being and lives of their families in occupied Europe. Due to the war, letters were received in Mauritius rarely, usually months after they were written, when some of the information in the letters was actually irrelevant anymore. These letters were usually short and written in codes that only the recipient would understand. Lily and Ervin sent letters from Mauritius to their relatives in Czechoslovakia through the Red Cross and received replies. You can see the original message on the side of the Red Cross formal form and the reply on the reverse side of the form. Here you can see some examples, and I will read some lines from these examples. Lily and Ervin wrote on September 1941. Grete wrote that Welly would be soon in Prague. We are concerned with mother's conditions. We write through the prisoner's mail. We are healthy. We are treated and fed well. We do not need anything. Greetings and kisses to everyone. Lily and Ervin. Welly wrote an answer on February 1942. We hear from you often. Is it the same on your end? We are healthy, worried. Mother is well. The father-in-law has died. Hans, Mariana, and George are gone. Camilla is healthy. Prague. Trudy is loyal. Roselle is healthy. Welly. A year later, she wrote, I'm very happy for you. We are fine. Mother is healthy. Ewald and I are working. Roselle, Trude, and Tolas have gone away. Everyone left us. I visited Tolas. Irene is sending to her regards. This letter was written in February 1943. Lily's mother perished in a concentration camp. Ida, Ervin's mother, was sent on July 1943 to the Theresian Ghetto, as well as her sister Welly and her husband Ewald Kohn. Ida, Welly, and Ewald were sent to Auschwitz, where Ewald and Ida perished. Welly survived, and in 1942, she immigrated to Israel, where she remarried. She sent a telegram, you can see it on the left, to Irving immediately after the war, telling him about the fate of their loved ones. In the photo on the right, you can see Wally giving her testimony during the Eichmann trial in Jerusalem. And now for the last story for this evening, which is a special collection within the Mauritius collection, the estate of Fritz Handel. Here you can see Fritz on the left, and on the right, a portrait of Hannah Gottlieb, later Handel, made by her husband Fritz in Mauritius. I first learned about the tragic story of the Handel family when the Mauritius collection was donated to our archive in 2008 by the Association of Former Mauritius Detainees. When the incredible exhibition, A Ticket to Heaven, curated by Elena Makarova, was on display at our museum during the fall of 2009, I had the chance to deepen my knowledge and understanding of this story, which carries a distinct sense of loss. The hardship of life on Mauritius has taken their toll on Fritz Handel, and he committed suicide unknowing that his wife Hannah was carrying their child. I was curious to meet the child that was born after his father's death, shortly after the arrival of the exiles and his mother among them to Eretz Israel. Finally, I was lucky to meet him about 14 years later in his beautiful house in Sregim Leon, decorated with the artworks of his father and his own. I was excited to find out that Shlomo, the son who never met his father, inherited his artistic talent. Shlomo donated to our archives his father's estate, which includes the personal correspondence between Fritz and Hannah and between Fritz and his brother Yohanan Heinrich in Kibbutz Hulda, as well as certificates, greeting cards to Fritz and Hannah's marriage, and a treasure of 300 drawings and sketches made by Fritz Handel during their voyage on board of the Atlantic and on the island. I will never forget Shlomo's words when he handed me his father's estate. This is the closest thing I had to my father. Among the beautiful sketches depicting, sometimes with a lot of humor, the journey and the daily life in Mauritius, I was thrilled to find illustrated letters written in beautiful Hebrew, although with some spelling mistakes, which were sent by Fritz in the men's camp to his wife Hannah in the women's camp. At first, while reading these love letters, I was astonished by the enormous gap between the humor which characterizes the letters and the knowing that the man who wrote them committed suicide shortly after. But a deeper look at these personal letters reveals the sorrow and despair in which they were written, and the fact that writing them was a way to cope with the situation and the difficulties. I can only imagine what those letters meant to Hannah and her son Shlomo in the years that came after his death. In his letter to Hannah, he tried, to a certain extent, to spare her his difficulties. But when he writes to his brother, Yohanan Heinrich, in Kibbutz Hulda, he feels more comfortable to share with him his true feelings. Most of the letters to his brother are written in English, probably due to censorship instructions, few of them in German. He always starts with his daily life. For the time being, I'm working on a marionette show. We intend to finish it in time for Purim, but I'm afraid we will not succeed. We want to produce a Purim play, more or less in traditional style, a bit flavored and severed by references to more recent events. This is taken from a letter he wrote to his brother on February 1943. he also mentioned, work has always been a vital thing to me, so it is here. And here you can see some of the decoration he made to this Purim event. But as time goes by, his letters to his brothers became more and more desperate. At very rare occasions, I'm making caricatures or drawings. For nearly 6 months, I have been doing nearly nothing in this line. There are many new babies in the camp. Most of them are developing very well. This is certainly the best things to do here. For in children, one sees the future, the only real comfort in this dull presence. No doubt everything would be much better and much easier if we had a child. Our life would be focused on something. I'm afraid I have been writing a lot of myself. Again, this is taken from a letter to his brother written on 6th of December, 1943. And he continues on the same letter. It is already more than 4 years that I took leave of you. Sometimes it seems to me it was yesterday. We are losing all sense of time. Time is at a standstill for us, and so we are. Yesterday or 4 years ago, it's all the same. Our remembrance of what happened in 1938 till 1940 is so deeply engraved in our minds that the period looks much less remote. I think when we shall meet again, you and I will be much surprised. You for seeing me unchanged and I for seeing you change. Yet, despite the inner barriers in writing and in drawing, he describes in his letters to his brother, Handel still left his wife and son a beautiful inheritance. As you can see, some examples on the screen right now. There are plenty more depicting the life in Mauritius with a lot of humor. It's going through each one of them is an amazing experience. And I would like to finish my presentation with a quote from Professor Yolanda Gampel's book, The Parents Who Lived Through Me, Children of War. Life is an endless flow and each person anchors himself in the stream to which he belongs. One cannot disconnect, neither from his ancient fathers nor from those who have given birth to him. Neither can he disconnect from his offsprings or who will assure his continuity. Being anchored in such a line of affiliation is not like a symbolic entry into a family tree. It means to feel in your body the presence of your parents, of your grandparents, to sense that your own body lives in the bodies of your children. Thank you very much for listening. You can see my email and phone number, and you can address me for any requests or question you may have. If you want us to make a search in the collection to find any information about relatives, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anat, for that incredible journey and also very deep connections to the history, to the current, and also how we can use archives to make those connections. Thank you. I think the work that you do at the Ghetto Fighters House, especially the archive department, incredible and very, very important. Thank you very much for that wonderful, wonderful presentation. Thank you. And at this point in time, I would like us to watch a video of a testimony, the testimony of Shlomo Handel.
אז אנחנו נתחיל ואני אגיד שאנחנו היום ה-25 בינואר 2023, אנחנו נמצאים בסריגים, ואנחנו נקיים עכשיו רעיון עם מר שלמה הנדל. אז שלמה, קודם כל תודה שהסכמת להתראיין, ואני אשמח אם תוכל ככה להתחיל קצת לספר על עצמך.
קודם כל אני הבן של פריץ הנדל, בנה של חנה הנדל, שהייתה אשתו 4 שנים, משהו כזה, ובמאוריציוס, הכירו בדרך למאוריציוס, או יותר נכון בדרך לארץ.
מאיפה?
מצ'כיה, והיכרות בת 4-5 שנים, שבסופו של דבר הייתה מאוד קצרה, רבויה
We don't hear you.
מיוחדים.
The volume on the video is quite soft. I can't adjust it, so hopefully you can read the subtitles.
בבית הסוהר במאוריציוס, וסופה טרגדיה טרגדיה שהייתה, לא דיברו עליה. זה הסיפור באופן כללי, כן? אני נולדתי בארץ, שבוע אחרי שהגיעו ארצה, עלו לארץ, אבי נפטר בינואר 45, תחילת ינואר 45, ואני נולדתי בתחילת ספטמבר 45. זאת אומרת חלק מהסיפורים הם אם הוא ידע שהיא בהיריון או לא, כן? בכל אופן הוא שם קץ לחייו, ולאורך השנים, אחרי שנודע לי את סיבת מותו, אז קצת האמא הייתה מוכנה להיפתח ולספר לי על האישיות שלו. אבל זה היה קמצוץ, כי היה לה קשה לספר, היה לה קשה להיפתח, שלא לדבר על חבריו הקרובים ובכלל כל אנשים מאוריציוס שלא היו מוכנים לדבר על הנושא בשום פנים ואופן, כדי שאני לא אדע מה הייתה סיבת מותו. הייתה פה איזה מין הזדהות עם האמא שלי שלא רצתה לספר מסיבות שלה, ותמיד ששואלים אותי על מאוריציוס, אני יכול לדבר רק מהסיפורים שאני שמעתי והצלחתי לדלות במשך שנות חיי, ובניתי את הדמות של פריץ הנדל על פי הסיפורים והתמונות כמובן, הציורים. ולאט הכרתי את הבן אדם. אין ספק שהוא היה איש עם יכולות בלתי רגילות. הוא היה מאוד מוכשר, גם מאוד רגיש. אפשר לראות את זה בקריקטורות שהוא צייר, את הנקודות שהוא ידע לזהות, לראות בקו שלו, בקו האומנותי שלו. אמא שלי אמרה לי באחת מהשיחות האחרונות שהיו לי איתה, שהיא חושבת שהוא לא היה שורד, אחרי עלייתו לארץ, הוא לא היה שורד את הקושי של החיים כאן. זאת אומרת, הוא היה עושה את זה גם פה, ככה היא אמרה. זהו, אני כנראה ירשתי חלק מהיכולות שלו. אני מצייר, אני עוסק באומנות. אומנות היא חלק מהחיים שלי בכל התחומים שבהם אני עוסק, בנגרות ומסגרות, והיום בגינון, וזה מין קו כזה שמוביל אותי במשך כל חיי, ואני חושב שגם חלק מילדיי ממשיכים אותו, את הקו הזה.
אמא, אתה אומר, לא הרבתה לדבר, לשתף.
לא, מאוד מעט.
ומה בכל זאת? איזה סיפורים בעצם אתה... מתי הפעם הראשונה שאתה זוכר שמספרים לך?
תראי, הסיפור הוא באמת מאוד מוזר. אמא שלי לא רצתה לדבר על ההתאבדות שלו, כי היא פחדה שזה יעבור לבן שלה, המצב הנפשי, מה גם שבן דודו התאבד גם כן פה בארץ. אני חשבה שזה משהו גנטי. והצליחה להסתיר את זה ממני עד שאני הייתי בן 25, אולי יותר אפילו. ואז זה פליטת פה של בת דודתי, שידעה כנראה לסיפור הזה, עוררה את כל הנושא הזה. אבל היא הייתה מאוד מאוד עצובה. אמא הייתה קשוחה עם עצמה. וכל חייה היו לשמור על הבן שלה. אחרי שהיא הייתה בהיריון, הודיעו לה שהיא בהיריון, היא עברה טירוף, כן? אשפזו אותה בבית חולים לחולי רוח, היא הייתה בהיסטריה מוטרפת לגמרי, ואחרי חודשיים שהייתה שם, עם הקשיחות שלה ועם היכולת הישרדות שלה, המשיכה את חייה, עד סוף ימי חייה, כל הזמן היא בקשר עם הבן שלה, כן, מצד אחד, דואגת, כל הזמן דואגת, ויחד עם זה משחררת, כן, משחררת. היא חיה ברגשות אשם שההתאבדות שלו היא בגללה, וזה נודע לי ממש לקראת סוף ימי חייה, אחרי שעשינו את הסרט במאוריציוס, היא הייתה מוכנה איכשהו להתוודות שהיא חשבה שהיא אשמה. כן? ובגלל המחשבה הזו היא לא רצתה להיות אשמה, חס וחלילה יקרה משהו לבן שלה. אז מצד אחד הדאגה שלה הייתה כל כך גדולה, מצד שני היא שחררה אותי. עשיתי מה שרציתי. כל מה שרציתי בחיים עשיתי. אף פעם לא עמדה למכשול, אבל הדאגה הייתה רצופה עד סוף ימי חייה.
אוקיי, ובגיל 25. אני נחזור לרגע הזה שהסוד מתגלה.
הסוד מתגלה. ואז אני בהלם מוחלט. ישר הייתי עם בת דודתי בתל אביב, הכנו איזו תערוכת ציורים, סיפרה לי את זה תוך כדי עבודה, הייתי בהלם, צלצלתי מיד לחברים של אמא שלי, שהיה לנו קשר מאוד חזק איתם. משפחת שפיצר, גרו בלוד, מיד נסעתי ללוד, שאלתי אותם אם זה נכון. אמרו לי, זה נכון, אבל אנחנו לא נספר לך שום דבר. עולה לי פתאום. אתה תיסע לאמא שלך, והיא תספר לך. וזהו, ואני הודעתי לאמא שאני בא, והם כבר עדכנו אותה שאני מגיע, והיא תצטרך לפתוח את כל הסוד הזה, היא תצטרך לחשוף את הכל. וכמובן שאני באתי, והמפגש היה מאוד מאוד עוצמתי. היא סיפרה לי מה שהיה, אבל לא נכנסה לפרטים. היא לא נכנסה לפרטים, כי היא לא יכלה לעמוד בזה. היא לא סיפרה לי איך היא נכנסה וזה, היא נכנסה לחדר שלו. היא לא סיפרה לי את פרטי הפרטים ששמעתי אותם אחר כך מאנשים אחרים, שכל אחד עם
גרסה שלו.
עם הגרסה שלו. ולכן היו פה כמה גרסאות שאני עדיין לא... והיא אמרה לי שמיד, שהיא הייתה בהיסטריה גמורה ואושפזה בבית החולים, ואחרי שהיא נרגעה והרגיעו אותה שם, אמר לה מנהל בית החולים שהוא לא דואג, שהיא תצליח להחזיק מעמד. זה מה שהיא סיפרה. וכמובן היא סיפרה לי שהיא הסתירה את זה כי פחדה שגם הבן דוד שלו יתאבד וזה ולא עוד סתם. וזה יצר איזה מין שחרור מסוים, כן? שחרור מסוים, אבל היא לא המשיכה לדבר את זה. היא לא הייתה מוכנה לדבר. ממש לא.
ואתה?
ואני הייתי בלהט פנימי, רציתי להיות במקום הזה, רציתי לראות את המקום. אז כמובן שאספתי כמה שיותר עבודות, וכמה שיותר פסלים, וכמה שיותר אינפורמציה מהחברים שלו. כל פעם שהייתי מגיע לבית המאייר למשל. זה תמיד היה איכשהו, הייתי שואל אותו, ואז הוא היה נכנס למחסן שלו, הוא מביא לי איזה מריונטה, כן? לא דיבר, נתן לי מריונטה, פעם נתן לי ציור, פעם נתן לי איזה גלופה של אחד מחיתוכי העץ שאבא שלי עשה. כל פעם הוא היה מוציא משהו נפרד, הוא היה נפרד מהעבודות שלו ונותן את זה לי, כן? שירגיש שהוא בשל לזה, כן? אבל לא היה דיבור בינינו, אף פעם. ביני ובין אף פעם. וככה התנהלו עניינים עד שיום אחד הצעתי לדודי, מה דעתך שניסע למוריציוס? אני הייתי מת לראות את המקום הזה, אני כבר הכרתי את העיר הזה, הכרתי את כל מה שקורה שם, מהסיפורים, כל כך חזק, כל כך בתוך הנשמה שלי, ולשמחתי הוא הסכים.
אח של אבא.
אח של אבא. שלא דיבר על אחיו. לא דיבר.
אוקיי,
לא סיפר שום דבר.
וואו.
כן, ואז הכנו את הנסיעה הזו, היו הכנות של כמה חודשים, אז לא היה פלאפון ולא קם, ולא ידעו בכלל מה יש שם, היה משטר קומוניסטי היה שם, ופחדו, האפשרות שאנחנו ניסע לשם, הייתה בעייתית מבחינה ביטחונית, כי מרגלים, אני יודע, קומוניסטים, יחסים לא טובים עם ישראל. ונסענו לשם, בסופו של דבר הגענו לשם, יצרנו קשר עם מאוריציאנית, או לא מאוריציאנית, עם אישה שהייתה נשואה למאוריציאני שלמד במוסקבה. למד במוסקבה והוא הכיר אותה שם, היא הייתה רוסיה במקורו. יהודייה. יצרנו איזה קשר איתה, והיא קיבלה את פנינו, ואז התחלנו להסתובב בעיר, והיה מוטרף לגמרי, כן? ושם הכרנו אנשים, הכרנו גם כן מישהו שלמד ציור אצל אבא שלי, והתארחנו אצלו, והיה מרתק, וכמובן עלינו לבית הקברות. עלינו לבית הקברות, שזה היה השיא, באמת השיא.
Thank you. Thank you for that emotional, very powerful testimony. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Roni Mikel-Arieli, for conducting the interview and being able to capture that story and the emotions in that testimony. Thank you very much. That was such a privilege. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point in time, I would like us to engage in a candle lighting ceremony. We do have a virtual presentation of the candle lighting ceremony, so we will watch a video of this presentation. However, if you have a candle near you in your home, you are most welcome to join in this ceremony by also lighting a candle as we watch this presentation.
I, Tali Regev, the son of Regina and Dr. Aharon Zwergbaum, would like to light this candle as a representative of the 60 babies born in Beau, Bassin Detainees camp in Mauritius, and in the memory of my late parents and the 128 Jewish refugees who died during the detention.
My name is Tali Nates, and I'm the founder and director of the Johannesburg Holocaust and Genocide Center, a partner organization of the Beau Bassin Jewish Detainees Memorial and Information Center in Mauritius. I light this candle as a daughter of a Holocaust survivor, Moses Turner, whose life was saved by Oskar Schindler. I light it to honor and remember all victims of the Holocaust, including my grandmother Leah Turner and young aunts Hella and Tila Turner. I also light this candle to remember the strong bond of friendship and support between the South African Jewish community and the 1,581 Jewish detainees in Mauritius during the war.
My name is Noam Gilboa. I am the granddaughter of Aria and Hannah Cohen, who were among the Jewish refugees deported to Mauritius in December 1940. My grandparents met and fell in love in Mauritius. On the 25th of October 1944, my grandfather wrote a birthday letter to my grandmother. To my little beloved Nushka, today is your 18th birthday, and I give you this album as a gift so that you will always remember me. If in the future you will be happy with some man, know that my heart will always belong to you, only you and no one else. Wishing you warm regards and kisses from the bottom of my heart. The man will love you always, Polly. My grandparents got married in 1946 in the backyard of their new home in Kiryat Chaim, Israel, where they established our family. The story of the deportation is deeply woven into our family history. I would like to light this candle as a representative of the third generation of Mauritius exiles in memory of my grandparents and all the Jews who were deported to Mauritius during the war. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Vanessa Kalu. and I am chief guide at the Beau Bassin Jewish Detainees Memorial and Information Center. This memorial was inaugurated in November 2014. During my work, I've got the opportunity to meet visitors from different walks of life, ex-detainees, families of detainees. Since then, I've made my work a heartfelt mission to accompany those who are on the path of a healing journey to Mauritius. Our permanent exhibition explores the story of the refugees through a series of display panels, artifacts, learning about their daily hardship during the internment and also their resilience. Today we honor the sense of community among the refugees and their tireless struggle to get their freedom. On behalf of the Beau Bassin Memorial, I would like to light this candle in memory of the 128 refugees who never made it to the Promised Land and rest in the Saint-Martin Cemetery. Thank you.
I'm Harry Hargreaves, the son of Harry Handel Hargreaves, one of the camp's British commanders. My father survived the sinking of the Patriot in Haifa Harbour and came to Mauritius and worked in the camp until it was closed in August 1945. Here he met my mother, Franco-Mauritian lady, who worked as a volunteer in the ladies' camp looking after the children. They married in 1942. I was born 80 years ago in 1943. At my birth, the detainees presented me with a silver spoon as a token of good fortune. They had manufactured that spoon from Mauritius silver 1 rupee coins, and they had done this in the workshop. I have now passed that spoon to my eldest granddaughter, and I'm sure it will serve her as well as it has served me. I would like to dedicate this candle to the many children who died in this camp. Thank you.
My name is Ronnie Mikel Arieli, and I am a cultural historian researching the deportation to Mauritius over the past 4 years as a research fellow at the Harman Institute for Contemporary Jewry of the Hebrew University. I would like to light this candle in memory of Anne Harris, who passed away a few days ago. Arriving in South Africa with her esteemed husband, the late Rabbi Cyril Harris, in the late 80s, from the outset, Anne made her mark in various ways as a Jewish communal leader, as a social justice and human rights activist, and as an accomplished lawyer and legal academic. She was also the president of the African Jewish Congress, which was one of the leading organizations behind the formation of the Beau Bassin Jewish Detainees Memorial and Information Center in 2014. Anne Harris passed away in Israel this weekend, leaving us with a long legacy of tikkun olam, integrity, and ethical values. May her memory be a blessing. Baruch Dayan Emet.
Thank you. What a very moving tribute and commemoration. And thank you to all the messages from the different descendants and speakers who dedicated their candles to the various survivors. Thank you very much. That was very, very touching and very emotional. It really has made this program very special. And at this point in time, I would like to invite Rabbi Silberheft to conclude with his remarks, but also to share with us a prayer at the conclusion of this program. Thank you, Rabbi.
Good evening, and thank you very much for inviting me to participate this evening. I'm extremely encouraged by the efforts being made by so many people to keep this history, important part of Jewish history, alive. As you know, South Africa was the closest Jewish community to the detainees and was very, very involved in the communication throughout the period of their detention, sending them newspapers, medication, etc., and liaising with the authorities for their well-being as well as ultimate release as well. Thank you, Ronnie, for mentioning Anne Harris, our past president, who was a driving force for the establishment of the Beau Bassin Museum and Information Center. She actually officially opened it in 2014. And for those that aren't aware, her late husband, the chief rabbi, raised the funds for all the granite plaques that are on all the graves with more accurate information, which enables visitors, but more importantly, those buried there, that the information be accurate. So we remember her memory, and may, as you said, Ronnie, may her memory be a blessing and an inspiration to all of us. Allow me to conclude with a prayer. Almighty God, Ribbona Olamim, who is full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant true rest upon the wings of your Shekhinah, your divine presence in the exalted spheres of the holy and pure, who shine as the glory of the firmament to the souls of all those who escaped the gas chambers of Hitler and his accomplices, made it to the land of Israel, but never merited to be buried in Israel, but were buried in the St. Martin's Jewish Cemetery on the island of Mauritius, where they were given temporary refuge, and from there they went to their eternal world. In their memory, honor, and in remembrance of their souls, we all online this evening commit to continue to tell their story, the story of all the Jewish detainees who spent 4.5 years in detention at the Beau Bassin prison. May those buried in the St. Martin's Jewish Cemetery, may their place of rest be in Gan Eden, and may the all-merciful one, Almighty God, shelter them with the cover of his wings forever and bind their souls in the bond of life. The Lord is their inheritance. May they all rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you for that powerful prayer. Amen. Thank you to all the survivors and descendants who were able to join us this evening. Thank you very much. Thank you to you, Rabbi Silberheft, for joining us and for that concluding prayer. Thank you to Owen Griffiths. Thank you to Igal Cohen. Thank you to Anat. Thank you very much to the organizers of this commemoration. Thank you to the Ghetto Fighters House Archive, as represented by Anat Bratman-Elhalel, for that amazing, incredible, moving presentation. Thank you to the Johannesburg Holocaust and Genocide Center. Thank you to the Hebrew University. Thank you to the Beau Bassin Jewish Detainees Memorial and Information Center. Thank you to the Island Hebrew Congregation of Mauritius. And of course, thank you to Dr. Roni Mikel-Arieli for putting all of this together and for your efforts. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen and guests, for participating in this year's commemoration. We will meet again next year. And let's hope that next year will be better and hopefully more peaceful than this year and the previous years. Thank you. Have a good day, have a good evening, or have a good morning wherever you're joining us from. Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.